Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm Suzanne Monroe, founder of the International Association of Wellness Professionals, where I've been teaching people how to live a life of wellness, tap into their passion, and go for their dreams for over 15 years. I believe living well and dreaming big starts with ourselves. This podcast will show you how to create a healthy, holistic life, empower your mindset, follow your dreams, and make a big impact. Let's dive in right now. Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm excited for today's episode. Today's episode is a special type of episode, a read aloud, where I'm going to be reading aloud from my book, Live Well, Dream Big, the ultimate guide to becoming your best self and living life on your own terms. And I'm going to be sharing with you some actionable tips and tools as we go along. And really, I want to help you to avoid one of the biggest problems that I see people experiencing today: burnout. Burnout is on the rise. People are more stressed than ever. They're experiencing overwhelm and anxiety, and all of this is mounting and leading to burnout. Now, if you've heard my personal story before, then you know I'm speaking from personal experience here. So we're going to be diving into Wellness 360, which is included in this book, and we're going to be looking at the specific elements that make up Wellness 360 and applying it to burnout, so you can get on with living your best life, feeling more energized, and living well and dreaming big. So join me right now. Hello, Suzanne Monroe here. I'm excited today to be doing a read aloud from my book, Live Well, Dream Big, the ultimate guide to becoming your best self and living life on your own terms. I'm going to be diving into specific sections in the book, reading aloud, and having a conversation with you about how some of the tips in here can support you to overcoming your burnout, get out of stress, and start living a life of living well and dreaming big, and really reclaiming your life and your health. Today, we're focusing on the Wellness 360 element of food. And by now, you may already know what Wellness 360 is. If you don't and you want to get the guide, a great place to start is with this free guide. All you have to do is go to iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide, where you can get your download a digital copy of the book. You can learn all about Wellness 360 and get the roadmap. And that's going to help you get started on your journey. But today is going to help you as well. We're looking specifically at the element of food, which is one of the 12 elements of Wellness 360. And what I want to do is walk you through the 3 layers that make up the element of food. And then I'm going to share with you some tips, or what I call burnout busters, to help you start taking action with this element and avoiding or getting out of burnout, and really on the path to living well and dreaming big. So let's dive in together into food. And I will say food is one of the most kind of challenging elements, because there's so much conflicting information out there in the world on food. And it's crazy, right? You can hear one thing from one expert and something else from another expert, right? And you can try one diet or way of eating and it might work for a while, but then it stops eating, and you try another way and maybe that works, but then it stops working, right? So food is just one of the most challenging areas that people have, because there's just so much information, some misinformation, but some amazing information, but yet it conflicts, right? So I want to help you take a different perspective with food. And actually, just saying that, I'm feeling in my own body kind of like a sigh of relief. And I hope maybe you can feel that sigh of relief too, if you've been caught up with food for maybe years or even decades, right? Let's talk a little bit about it. Our world today is filled with an overwhelming number of things to consider when it comes to food. Everywhere you turn, there's some new expert telling you what you should and shouldn't eat. You might find yourself wondering who to listen to and what to believe. Thankfully, our philosophy of the element of Wellness 360 food is about finding a path of healthy eating that nourishes you and gives you energy. And I truly believe it's different for every person. So what works for me may not be the same thing that works for you. Now, there's 3 layers to the element of food. Okay, we're going to walk through them. On the external layer, that's kind of that most simple, basic layer in Wellness 360. It's really kind of the first thing that comes to mind. So with food, it's what you're eating, right? And there are no rules that you have to follow in life about food, right? You probably have a lot of food rules, but they're not set in stone. And every person on the planet really does have a specific biochemistry. Like I said, what works for me may not work for you. We all have different environments and lifestyles and careers and so many things that impact the food that could work for us. When we combine all of these factors, we realize we're all each individually quite unique. And that means that each diet and nutrition plan out there isn't necessarily right for every person. I believe the food you need to eat is should be as unique as you are. Then we think about the internal layer of food. This is kind of going one step in. So now we're at the internal layer of food. This is about bringing awareness to our eating, right? So that food's going in. What's our awareness around that? When you're trying to discover the foods that work best for your body, you can think of your body as a laboratory. That's what I like to do. I like to think of it as a laboratory, that it's all about experimentation, right? Because our body is constantly giving us responses to the foods that we're eating. You can listen to the signals your body's giving you and then adjust your food choices accordingly. So, our body laboratory has so much wisdom. We probably don't realize it, at least when we first get started on the path to living a better life and getting on the path to wellness, because we've really been conditioned to not listen to our body and not pay attention to the food that we're eating. But when we eat, things are happening there that give us signs and signals and symptoms to how things are working for us. And so we can learn to really develop that inner way of eating. And then on the symbolic layer, the element of food, got something on my face here. The element of food represents nourishment. Okay. On an energetic level, food is not just about calories. And I know that's kind of hard to get sometimes if you've lived your life counting calories, but food is not just about calories. It's about nourishing ourselves. Food literally translates into the energy that we have. And so I like to take a step back here from food theories and even our own relationship to food and ask some other questions like, do you feel connected to the food you eat? Do you even know where your food is coming from? Do you feel nourished, not only physically, but in a greater sense? Those are some things that can help you to start making that connection on the symbolic layer of food. But let's talk about some tips specifically as it relates to balancing this element and helping you to avoid burnout. Some things that you can do right away when you're thinking about the element of food, right? There might be a lot for you to figure out. There's a lot to experiment with. You're learning how to listen to your own inner wisdom. You're learning to listen to that laboratory, but there's some things that could help you get started right away. Okay, these are not quick fix solutions like going on a diet or suddenly counting all the calories you're taking in a day, right? What we're talking about Wellness 360 with the element of food or any element, these are changes that are about small steps that over time add up to transformation. Okay. So balancing your food. First of all, let go of rules for a day. If you've been a rule follower when it comes to food, just try it. It's only one day. I promise you, you can do this. When you let go of the rules, what happens? Well, do you notice that your body is craving something? What is your mind telling you that you should eat? Right? If you just let go of the rules, like what would you actually eat that day? Some people are like, oh my gosh, I'd go crazy. I would eat chocolate cake and brownies and cookies. Wow, that sounds kind of good right now, right? I'd eat all those things. And that's why I need to have these rules for myself. You know what? Maybe you would do that for a day, right? But then probably the next day, you wouldn't think that would feel really good. Eventually, you would get tired of that. I'm telling you, you would. And so ultimately, what would you choose to eat to feel energized every day, right? You might have been telling yourself, I cannot eat any carbs. I'm carb free, right? If you let go of food rules for a day, maybe you'd go carb crazy because you've been depriving yourself of carbs. But over time, would you come back to a balancing point? Maybe you would really crave a smaller amount of carbs, but maybe they would be really healthy, complex carbohydrates, right? Who knows what would happen, but that's the only way to find out. And then you get to experiment with new foods. That's the second part of this. So sometimes the foods we've been telling ourselves is best for our body, it's just not the whole picture. Again, we have these food rules and things that we think we have to do. But I encourage you, branch out, try something new and see what happens. This is where we open up to food freedom. It truly is. And what you can help you along the way, and this is the third tip, is to keep a food journal. Now, some people keep food journals kind of to manage and follow those rules. This is kind of a different idea with the food journal. Keep it simple, keep it non-scientific, and don't judge yourself. Just briefly write down what you ate and actually how you felt eating it, not how many calories in it or how much it weighed on the scale or anything like that. I want you to write down how it made you feel and any cravings that you might have had that were coming up. After a while, you're going to be able to notice a pattern and start to make some changes based on what you're feeling. And this is really important. So those are some things to help you. The final tip here is to do a Wellness 360 check, right? You want to take a look at the Wellness 360 wheel and think about how all the other elements in the wheel might be impacting what you're eating. Here's the Wellness 360 wheel. You can see there's 12 elements that make it up. There's also 3 layers to every element, and all of these layers and elements are interconnected. So what that means is food just does not work only by itself. If we just try to control our food and focus on the element of food, like some things might happen, but we don't actually get a true holistic picture. And we don't always realize that some of the things that are causing us to be imbalanced with food are coming from other elements. So let's just take an example. Let's say rest. You're looking at the element of rest and you're not getting enough sleep. Something's going on with your sleep. And when you feel low energy, you start craving things that are going to give you energy. And maybe you're drinking caffeine or eating a lot of sugary foods, things to give you those pick-me-ups. Now we can try to fix your food all day long, but if it's really your rest that's out of balance, can you see that interconnection? Let's take another one. Let's say relationships. Let's say you're having some challenge with a personal relationship and it's really causing you a lot of emotional distress, right? Maybe when you're stressed out, you tend to have certain cravings or eat certain foods that kind of make you temporarily feel better. Again, we could try to change the food, but if something's actually happening in the relationship element, you can again see how those are interconnected. So those are just a couple of examples, but the point here is it's unique to you. Right. So that's why you've got to go on your own Wellness 360 journey to see how all these things fit together. Thanks for joining me for this Read Aloud episode and for learning about the burnout busters as it relates to food. And we'll see you back here next time. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Live Well, Dream Big. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. And I want to invite you to take your next step toward living well and dreaming big by downloading the Live Well, Dream Big lifestyle book. It's the ultimate guide to becoming your best self and living life on your own terms. You can grab your complimentary copy by going to the link in the show notes or heading directly to iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide. That's iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide.